The Western Cape government says National Police Minister Bheki Cele has no appetite to address crime in the Western Cape. It says police officers are also not receiving the support that they need to do their job. Let's talk to Reagen Allen, Western Cape MEC of Police Oversight and Community Safety. MEC, thank you for being with us. So you also say that 6 SAPS officers lost their lives between April and December last year. You talk about a lack of support. Are you actually suggesting they lost their lives unnecessarily?
Francis, I am at pains on the first hand to share this information because on the one hand, we are literally 20 years behind in fighting crime. And whenever there is under-resourcing, it places a tremendous strain on those officers that are currently deployed because firstly, they need to do the job of 3, 4, 5 people, which at times places their lives in danger and at risk with regards to crime and what we have seen. And again, like I've said, we are wanting to strengthen the hand of SAPS officers here in the Western Cape. And when we consider that we have less officers now than what we had 10 years ago, so it is a grave concern. We have a solution. We have seen the implementation of the LEAP program and what we have achieved in that regard. But yes, Francis, it is a matter where there is severe under-resourcing. I walk into a CSC at SAP stands for the Community Service Center, and at times I see one officer which is against the SOP because that particular person's life is also in danger. I've often seen one officer alone on a van, which also places that particular person, an officer, in danger. So sadly, the reality is that we are 20 years behind crime.
All right, and you have said before that as the province, you want to be in charge of the police force and to be able to deploy officers. You believe that should be devolved from national. By the way, we have asked the Minister's office for comment. We haven't received a response from them. Let's look at the national picture. So you say staffing is 20 years behind. The national police to population ratio, according to you, 1 to 413 people, so one officer for more than 400 people. Just put that into context. Is there a world average here? What does that mean for the communities?
Francis, I firstly want to qualify the statement to say that it's not merely based on what I'm saying. It's also based on official stats that we get from the South African Police Service. The UN has a general mark, and they are stating that for policing to be effective, it is 1 officer for every 250 residents. We are seeing here in the Western Cape where it is over 500, where 1 officer is then police to population ratio for over 500. In our priority areas, Francis, it is over 800 per 1 officer. In some of our rural stations, we go over to 1,000. So yes, there is best practices that hasn't been implemented yet in our country. Sadly, there's been budgetary cuts. There's been money going to state-owned enterprises, failing state-owned enterprises, taking money directly from the South African Police Service and other core departments like education, for example. So the context is that in 2012, the ideal number for SAPS at station level across our country was pegged at 157,000, and we were at station level across our country at 127,000. We are now only at 105,000 actual amount, when the ideal should be 195,000 at station level. And this is direct information from the South African Police Service, information I've received late last year with regard to police resourcing. So we have seen, hence we've had to step up, where we have deployed the LEAP officers in partnership with the City of Cape Town into those priority areas to ensure that we are able to reduce crime.
All right, so we're 90,000 officers short, which is incredible. And what is really surprising is what you've said, and you've said it before on the show, that the ratio is much higher on the Cape Flats, for example, where there are major crime hotspots. What engagements have you had with national government on that? Any cordial engagements? Because even with the resources that we have, you would think that crime hotspots would be a priority to deploy police officials to.
Francis, I have a quote in my office, and it is now officially 9 months since I've taken up office. And this particular quote I got directly from the police commissioner here in the Western Cape. And that quote is, "We are in the business of policing and safety and not politics." I've adopted that quote because we never want to play politics with the lives of our people. So the engagements has been fruitful. The engagements have been, in a sense, to foster working collaboration, and we've seen that. But we are hamstrung because choices are made all the way in Pretoria. Hence, we are calling for devolution, for SAPS to be managed closer to where the people are and not all the way in Pretoria. On the other hand, I would be remiss to not remind you and the viewers that we have a theoretical human resource requirement. In 2018, the Equality Court found that SAPS literally discriminated against poorer communities in terms of how officers are allocated. So the theoretical human resource requirement has seen where there's skewed allocations. So what you are referring to when you say that our hotspots are severely under-resourced, it speaks to the theoretical human resource requirement not properly being implemented. So we are here in the Western Cape, and we've been very adamant about using data and evidence to ensure that where we deploy our leave officers, which is an unfunded mandate, but we've seen the need, so we've stepped up in that regard, where they are deployed to where they are most needed to ultimately ensure that our communities can be safer. And we are seeing successes in that regard. So when the court already, and I think there was other court cases as well in transport, where SAPS was literally forced to comply in terms of violence in the taxi and in the long distance bus routes. And we might be heading that way, Francis, where we are going all the way to ensure that we are wanting to hold SAPS accountable. I'm a firm believer that our oversight role in the current legislation, in the current framework, should lead to better service delivery on the ground. But I've been adamant to foster those working relationships. And the fact that you have not received in reply from the National Minister's Office, we often also don't get replies, which is a sad reality, but we will persevere knowing that we need to do it in order to serve our residents.
All right, thank you. Reagen Allen, Western Cape MEC of Police Oversight and Community Safety. And of course, we followed that case, the court case, compelling the SAPS to protect those bus routes. We'll follow developments there as well.